Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to World Cup Daily here on What the West Yorkshire Football Show. I'm Chris Bell, back in after a day off yesterday, and joining me is Gareth Walker. Big thanks to Brownie for joining Gaz yesterday. How are you, mate? You well?
Yeah, just about coping, I think, in the heat, mate, but not too bad. I only saw properly the Argentina game. Yeah, third time, innit?
Yeah, the heat is back with a vengeance, it's fair to say. Yeah, look, it's a bit of a strange one because we haven't necessarily got anything directly to preview for tonight. It's the first day of the tournament without actual football, which is a bit of a strange one.
Yeah, me and Brownie mentioned it yesterday. Like, I think I fell asleep yesterday morning, and I said I should have saved my nap and fallen asleep today, like you did, Chris, because there was no football to watch. So all them that are whinging about not being able to watch the soaps or whatever can catch up on them today because the football's back tomorrow.
It is indeed. Let's go through then with last night's games to start with. And the early kickoff turned out to be a bit of a thriller in the end. I caught the second half on the radio as I was heading home, and I was just cursing and swearing my head off in the car as Argentina did what Argentina do, which is come back from behind. In this case, they were 2-0 down against the Egyptians, but Argentina found a way in the end. And obviously, I know you watched this game, Gaz.
I did. It was one of those where you just felt when they scored, it was one of those where the momentum just shifted, and when Argentina got that first goal, you kind of knew why you had a strong feeling about what was going to happen. Egypt were great. It totally unexpected because I think most people, me included, expected Argentina to just steamroller them, but they were actually really good. The two goals that they scored and the third, well, the one in the middle that was disallowed, were all absolutely fantastic. The first one's a cross into the box with a really, really good header. Jay tells me that it hit his face and went in. I couldn't really tell, but it looked like a good header to me. And then the two in the second half, obviously the first one's disallowed. It's just a fantastic team move. It's one of the great World Cup goals. And then they pull it back for a foul that's happened absolutely ages in advance. So there's a bit of contention about that. I was absolutely gutted. It was Zico who got that one. And then they sort of, they did it again, pretty much the same. Another team moved down the other side this time. And Zico again scores. And it's another fantastic goal. And they're 2-0 up. And you're just thinking, wow, Argentina are going out. And then they just started to play, and they just looked. It was like something flicked a switch or a fire inside them, and they just looked like the Argentina that we know they can be. And for that last 20 minutes, half an hour, whatever it was with extra time, you just, like I say, when they got the first one, you knew it was coming, and maybe the keeper could have done better with a couple of them. But yeah, when it went to 2-2, Egypt had another go as well, had another bit of a go on the break, and it was actually Argentina who countered them and got the winner on the break. So absolutely devastating, but great game to watch.
Yeah, as you say, that first one for Romero in the comeback, the keeper gets something on it, but not quite enough. And I saw the counter attack that you're referring to as well from Egypt late on, where I think it was 3-on-1 at one point. And Romero, to be fair, defended it well in the end. A little bit of combination of good defending from Romero and poor decision making. I think was it Mamouche? I think it was that had the ball and was going forward, and it could have been for Egypt. It really could. As you say, it's one of those where when they got that first goal, and you could sense it on the radio as well. Like when they got that first goal, that everything changed. That momentum was coming. I mean, it's fair to say the Egyptians haven't taken defeat well. On the whole, there was quite a lot of argy-bargy at full time. There's been quite a lot of words said by the Egyptians in the media since. They really feel aggrieved that that second goal wasn't given, that they scored, and that they feel there was a foul in the build-up to Argentina's winner as well.
Yeah, I'm not so sure if the foul was a foul in the build-up to the winner. The goal that was disallowed, I kind of get it. It was very, very soft, the foul that was given, and they went a long way back, did VAR to give it. So I kind of feel for them a little bit in that respect. Obviously, there's the usual accusations of bias towards the big teams and this, that, and the other. And during the match...
I like to play about any conspiracy theory against the Argies. So
yeah, well, in the game, the bench and the and the coaches were going absolutely apoplectic, and you can understand it, but it's hard to decide whether that is because they feel aggrieved or whether they're just annoyed at themselves for what's happened. The red card was issued, I think it was a French referee. And obviously afterwards, there's been, like you say, mate, there's been comments afterwards and in the media, they want a full investigation. And to be honest, mate, I kind of get it, because if the boot was on the other foot, the Argies would be doing exactly the same thing.
Yeah, that is true. That is very, very true. As is, though, Argentina through into the quarter-finals. The second game last night, the final last 16, round of 16 game between Switzerland and Colombia. I had higher hopes on the face of it for this one than it actually turned out to be. Not a great game at all in the end, all the way to penalties it was. And Switzerland winning it on spot kicks.
Yeah, I was looking forward to seeing Colombia, because they've been getting rave reviews throughout the tournament so far.
They looked really good. They were so good against Portugal despite not being able to get the win.
Yeah, and a lot of their games have been in the early hours of the morning, so we've not been able to see them. So it's been a case of watching the highlights and like reading about from those people that have watched it. So I was looking forward to seeing them. You expected a good game because Switzerland are a decent side as well, but it was one of those disappointing ones, really. A bit like the Spain-Portugal one the other day that we had high hopes for. Wasn't much between the teams. They both had half chances here and there, from what I can gather. I didn't watch the whole thing. Well, I had it on, but it was so dull. I was kind of distracted and only half watching it. And there were like half chances here and there, and then a couple of like the lad Luis Diaz, obviously not the famous Luis Diaz that we know, the new Luis Diaz, who I think he plays for Sporting in Portugal, and as a Colombia striker, he fluffed his lines at least once, if not twice. And yeah, the opportunities all just kind of came and went for both sides, and then it went for penalties. And again, they both missed one, but it's the save from the Switzerland goalkeeper that wins it for them in the end, and probably the only real bit of quality in the whole game, extra time and pens. It's an outstanding save, and probably because of that, deserved to win the game for Switzerland. Borussia Dortmund keeper, just fantastic save.
Yeah, he did really well into Kobel, the Dortmund keeper, to keep that one out. And yeah, it put Switzerland into the quarterfinals. We'll take a look then at kind of how they will shape up now. If I just switch us across over here, there we go. And that's how the quarterfinals will shape up. Then, obviously, we get back underway tomorrow. Interesting way of doing it, in that we get a game on Thursday night, we get a game on Friday night, and then technically we get two games on Saturday night. We get one at obviously 10 p.m. for Norway, England, and then one in the very early hours of Sunday morning, Saturday night, Sunday morning for Argentina, Switzerland. It's shaping up well, dominated by the European nations, with the exception, of course, of Morocco and Argentina. Is that necessarily what we expected in a tournament in the USA and Mexico and Canada? Bearing in mind that everything that was talked about before, and with the climates, I think a lot of people are expecting the South American nations and the African nations to possibly have a real chance of getting a bit further. And as it is, only one each of them.
Yeah, a little bit of a surprise based on what people thought before. Like you say, that you'd expect the teams from the humid continents, or the continents with higher altitude, or whatever it may be, to be more successful. But the European teams have done really well. It doesn't look like it's affected them that much. I mean, obviously England were up against it, weren't they, at the Azteca in the high altitude there, and you didn't really notice it in that game until towards the end. And obviously we spoke about it the other day when we covered the England game, and Konsa and Bellingham in particular looked like they were really struggling, but that was towards the end of the game, and you don't know how much of that was down to the fact that they played most of the second half with 10 men. The European teams have done well. They all deserve to be there. Every one of those teams you say deserves to be there. I mean, Belgium have ridden the luck at times and were very, very fortunate against Senegal, but they've got to do.
It does feel like Belgium are the questionable ones. And when you looked at the group stage and you're like, Christ, they're not going to go anywhere. And then lo and behold, obviously, turned it around in the round of 32 against Senegal very, very late on. And obviously turned up against the USA as well to get to this stage. So, I mean, without doing future shows jobs, where do you see that those quarters going, I suppose?
You have to be really, really careful, haven't you? Because obviously, me and Brownie talked about it on yesterday's show, where you pick your winners based on reputation or what you anticipate them to be like. That's why on paper, I kind of discarded Norway just because of Brazil's reputation, but they've been fantastic and thoroughly deserved to win that game. So it's very, very difficult to predict how they're going. I mean, if you're picking it on the face of it, you'd go France, Spain, England, Argentina, wouldn't you? But football's not played on paper, as we know, and there's been a few shocks in the tournament so far, none more so than, like you said, Belgium coming back against Senegal, Cape Verde's performances throughout, and yeah, it's impossible to predict what will happen, and every single one of those teams deserve to be there. Like you said, Belgium are the ones that have probably ridden the luck the most. Switzerland, we got fortunate a little bit with the pens last night, but they all deserve to be there. And I, like you say, like I always say, I don't make predictions anyway, but they could get those ties. Quarterfinals could go anywhere. They really could.
Yeah, I mean, look, having seen what we saw from last night's respective games, obviously Switzerland were and have been, to be fair, very tricky opposition for all the sides they've played. To be fair, obviously a couple of draws in the group stage, beating Canada as well. Any chance that Switzerland possibly could cause what would certainly be seen as an upset against the holding Argentina, or is it going to be a little bit too much for them? Is Messi just going to take over, or if Switzerland can keep Messi quiet, do they keep Argentina quiet?
Yeah, well, we've said that, haven't we, throughout, that it becomes a little bit of a case of, because they play everything through Messi, literally everything, they rely on him so much that if you keep him quiet, that you can keep Argentina quiet. But as we've previously said as well, how many teams and people and coaches, etc., have said that down the years? It's the same with Haaland and Norway, so keep them quiet. But they have got talent elsewhere, both of those teams. The thing is with Argentina, they have shown vulnerability, both against Cape Verde and obviously last night against Egypt. They have been got at by both of those sides. So they aren't as rock solid as perhaps we're used to them being in the past, and they have shown an air of vulnerability. So you can't rule Switzerland out. If Argentina played like they did when they finally woke up in the last 20 minutes of last night, they'll beat anybody. But if they play like they did, like I said, for part of the game against Cape Verde and the first hour or so last night, then Switzerland will have every chance. They're going to have to put a full 90 minutes performance in, I think.
Yeah, and the way the draw is, as you'll see, France v Morocco will play Spain or Belgium, Norway or England will play Argentina or Switzerland, and that's the dates as well. UK times of the game, so the semis. In fact, we get the quarters out of the way between Thursday and I'd say the early hours of Sunday morning. Then no game on Monday. No game Sunday night UK time. No game Monday, and then the semis get underway on Tuesday. England, if they get through, will play their semi-final on Wednesday night, and then the final will be on Sunday the 19th. It feels weird to have gone from so much football in this expanded tournament with the group stages and how many games we were getting to now looking at this point where we are down to that one game a day stage. It's a little bit sad, if I'm honest. I know that at club level, at least, pre-season is started, and the friendlies, I think, start for a lot of sides this weekend. But it does feel a little bit sad that we get to these later ending stages, as exciting as they will, of course, be.
Yeah, I mean, Bradford actually, I think we played our first friendly the weekend just gone. So
yeah,
we've done well. We've done well to have so much football between the end of the season and obviously now with pre-season starting. Obviously, City were fortunate they were involved in the playoffs, so that extended the season a bit. We've been really lucky with the World Cup as a whole as well, in the respect to those who want to watch so many games, because there has been so many more games this year with the extended competition and more teams being involved. It's meant more games, particularly probably across more days, as well as the fact that there's been more games on set day on days as well. I think today's the first day off since it started, and then obviously, like you say, we've got Sunday and Monday where there'll be no games, and then I think Thursday, Friday next week there'll no games. So to go for, say, that's 5 days in 5 or 6 weeks where there'll be no games. We've been really, really lucky. Yeah, I don't know how we'll cope when it finishes, but like you say, the pre-season will be in full flow by then. What is noticeable as well, mate, is the kickoff times. Obviously, the three of those 4 quarterfinals, both semi-finals, and the third and fourth place playoff and the final are all at times that we can watch. So out of the remaining 8 games left, there's only one now that'll be at a silly time for us.
And even that, to be fair, it could be. I might make an exception with that being Saturday night going into Sunday morning. I might make an exception and try and stay up for that one. Since it's the last one, the one last late night hurrah, perhaps for Argentina versus Switzerland. Strongly in the hope that the Swiss can beat them.
Well, maybe. I don't think I'll stay up, mate. It was enough for me doing it once the other night, and I was absolutely shocked.
Don't worry, I'll be doing enough cheering on for you. I'll be sat there with my Toblerone and pack of Swiss cheese and anything else that you can think of that's Swiss. Couple of St. Bernards.
Did you see the pun that was made? Actually, no, I'm not going to say it. I'll tell you off air. There was a pun made about yesterday's game between Switzerland and Colombia. But yeah. I don't think I will, just because I'm still recovering from staying up for the England game the other night, mate. But I'll watch the highlights in the morning and rely on your feedback on what the game was like if you stay up.
That really has taken its toll on you, hasn't it?
Yeah, I'm shattered, mate. Absolutely shattered. Really am.
It's been a struggle to catch up, I think, on that one. So yeah, just a quick reminder then: the quarterfinals from TV purposes, UK times and UK channels. ITV interested in getting 3 of the 4 semi-finals, including Norway versus England. The only game on the BBC is Spain versus Belgium. Quick word on that one, actually. Could Belgium cause an upset? Because we've seen a couple of games in this tournament where Spain have looked, dare I say, a little bit limp up front. They've had all the possession, the tiki-taka is very much still there, but putting the ball in the back of the net, as we saw again in the Portugal game until very late on, and to the Cape Verde game in their opening game. Any chance of an upset there for Belgium?
Possibly. I mean, Belgium haven't been great themselves, have they? They've sort of ridden the luck a couple of times, particularly against Senegal, and then
growing into it, aren't they, though, Belgium?
Yeah, perhaps they are. The other thing, me and Brownie covered it briefly yesterday when we talked about the Spain and Portugal game. The other facet that's going into the game that's going into the tournament is Lamine Yamal. Obviously, we know that he was injured and he's had his fitness and form issues before the tournament started. So he actually started on the bench, didn't he? And he's worked his way in and built into the tournament. What we discussed as well, I don't know if anyone saw it, and obviously it wasn't with you, so I'll say again, like Spain in the Euros a couple of years ago, Brownie made a really good point in that obviously they have the tiki-taka and we know the team is built in that way and lots of possession. But they had Nico Williams on one side and Lamine Yamal on the other side in the tournament a couple of years ago, and both of those players were outstanding and sort of provided another outlet or another dimension for that side, and they seem like they've missed that a little bit so far in this tournament. And if you can sort of congest them and keep the ball in the middle and frustrate them a little bit, they are vulnerable. So perhaps they're not quite the side that they were a couple of years ago just because of that, but for me, they've still arguably been the best side apart from France. France have been head and shoulders above everyone so far, in my opinion.
Yeah. Just before we go, I just want to touch on there's a hell of a lot of managers now on the job market off the back of this World Cup, it seems. Obviously, we know, I think the most recent two, Roberto Martinez was confirmed to be stepping down as Portugal boss, and Zlatko Dalic has stepped down after 9 years as the head coach of Croatia. I think, if I'm right in thinking, there was at least half a dozen prior to those two as well. It's. I mean, I'm not too sure how many clubs are out there that are still looking for a manager, but if there are a few, it could certainly make it interesting come to the managerial merry-go-round that we'll see over the course of the domestic seasons in Europe, especially.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I pay close attention to what's going on at Liverpool, and there were a few people saying, obviously, when Slot was sacked or departed by mutual consent after the end of the season, that Liverpool might be willing to wait till after the Euros to see who they could get. And I think, obviously, Nagelsmann was someone that was mentioned because of the history with style of play and stuff. Obviously, Nagelsmann wasn't particularly impressive in the tournament, and Liverpool are probably quite happy that they've gone with Andoni Iraola. But you're right, mate. I suppose it's a case of coming to the end of a cycle. Like, managers are often changed in club football at the end of the season. It's the end of the cycle. We're starting to move towards the next cycle. And it's the same with tournaments, isn't it, in international level? You know, we've come to the end of this cycle for the Euros now, and before we start to build into the next, this cycle for the World Cup now, and before we start to build into the next cycle for the Euros, people are sort of planning and making adjustments and looking at what they can do better or might serve them better going into that qualifying campaign. So I think it's always the case that we see managers lose their jobs or leave the positions at the end of tournament, or quite common anyway.
I think you're right, but it feels more. I mean, I know there were more teams in it to start with, but we're on to 9 now. I've just double checked. I mean, there's an article put out yesterday that was the full list, and it was the full list of 8, and that was prior to Dalic's departure. So we've seen Hong Mung-pyo leave from South Korea. Steve Clark obviously left for Scotland. Miroslav Kubek has left the Czechia job. Ronald Koeman left the Netherlands. The Ecuador manager Sebastian Bacache is gone. Julian Nagelsmann, Roberto Martinez. Interesting one as well. Carlos Queiroz. He'd literally been in the job for, I think, 2 games before the World Cup, and the World Cup group games, and the exit in the round of 32 against Colombia, I think it was. I mean, talk about taking a stopgap job. Queiroz turns up 2 games before the World Cup, sees out 4 games in the World Cup, buggers off.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know much about the situation. I don't know who was manager of Ghana before he took over and how that came about, where he only did 2 games prior to the tournament. But it does seem a little bit odd. I'm assuming that he was given only given a contract to cover the World Cup, because if not, that could be slightly expensive. Yeah, I don't know.
Interesting as well that we're in a situation where the Netherlands, Germany, and Portugal, in particular, 3 big European nations, all looking for new managers. And obviously the talk is that Klopp will go to Germany. Jorge, he's gone. I heard it on the radio yesterday. The Portugal, George Jesus is looking for the Portugal job. I've not seen anything really on the Netherlands job, to be fair, apart from 1 or 2 people throwing Ruud van Nistelrooy in the mix because he was Ronald Koeman's assistant. But it's interesting. You've got 3 big nations.
Yeah, you're right, mate. I mean, Portugal, for example, me and Brownie touched on it briefly yesterday with Martinez gone. I know that you feel the same as me about him, that he holds teams back, and with him gone, and possibly with Ronaldo gone as well now, which we feel was a hindrance for them in this tournament, they could finally start, if they get the right man in charge, fulfill the potential.
Interesting point on that, though. Apparently, Jorge Jesus was Ronaldo's manager at Al Nassr last season when he get off the back of a great season, where I think they won the title and Ronaldo did well. So it would be really interesting to see if Jorge Jesus goes in, what he does with Ronaldo going forward. Obviously, it's unlikely he'll make another World Cup, but obviously we've only got 2 years to another Euros, and it's something that's played week out for him at club level, only his last season.
Yeah, and isn't either the Euros or the World Cup one of the next 2 he's actually in Portugal? It's hard to be. It's difficult to see how Ronaldo's ego couldn't stop him trying to feature in that tournament.
I would just check. What we look at Euro 28, aren't we? Go on. We've got Euro 2028. I'd forgotten about that. England, Republic of Ireland, Scotland, Wales. So it must be the World Cup in.
Let me have a look. I saw it on Twitter yesterday, so I could have been giving you false information if someone's just reeled me in on Twitter.
I'll try and find out.
What will it be?
Keep going.
Yeah, no, it is. Morocco, Spain, and Portugal will host the World Cup in 2030. So
yes,
it was right.
The first one. It marks the 100th anniversary of the first tournament in 1930, and it will be the first World Cup to be hosted across continents, even though obviously geographically between Morocco and Spain is probably about 10 miles or something, maybe a little bit more than that. It is across continents.
I mean, Ronaldo is 41 now, so he will be 45 by the time that tournament comes around. But still, honestly, if he's still playing, I would not put it past him. If that guy's his manager as well, the one that you mentioned, knows him well.
Yeah, if Jorge Jesus ends up there and he wants to keep him around, you wouldn't be too surprised, would you? No. Stranger things have happened.
Regarding the Dutch job, I have seen, obviously, what I read and sites I follow on social media. I have seen Arne Slot linked with that job, which is quite interesting. Obviously, if Klopp was to get the German job and Slot was to get the Dutch job, that would be quite interesting. I think Klopp sounds like he's pretty much nailed on, though, doesn't it? Sounds like he's waiting for an announcement, pretty much.
I'm intrigued. Obviously, even as a non-Liverpool fan, I absolutely love Jurgen Klopp, and I think it'd be really interesting to see what he could do for the national side. Because I feel like he's such a good motivator for a
That's
start.
it.
I also don't think that Germany squad is anywhere near as bad as people make out. And also, those that weren't in the squad, there was a lot of really good young German talent coming through at a number of the clubs in the Bundesliga, not just like the Dortmund and Bayern, but a lot more of the kind of traditional clubs where they use the youth system more. There's some real talent. So I think that combination of a youthful Germany squad plus Jurgen Klopp could be absolutely lethal going forward. If I was German, which I'm not, although my other half is of German heritage, would be massively excited.
My wife's quarter German as well, Chris. So we have something in common there. But yeah, the only thing that I would point out about Klopp going to the national team is how it's the same with anybody, I suppose. But it's how you go from having players with you day to day and building up that relationship with them, and the way that Klopp plays as well is very intense, isn't it? It's very fit. You have to be very, very fit. The press is very high. If they're not doing that at club level, in the teams that they're playing at club level, it'd be interesting to see how he manages to, if he can get them to play that way with the national team, considering that he'll only have them for a week or 2 weeks at a time before each game. So it remains to be seen. But like you, mate, I absolutely love the bloke, and I'm really intrigued to see how he gets on.
Yeah, it will be interesting. A question will remain as to how many of the remaining 8 nations in the World Cup will lose a manager if they fail to win it. Time will tell. Gaz, thanks ever so much for joining me, mate. We will wrap it up there. Nice short one today with no games tonight necessary to look forward to. We'll be back tomorrow to look ahead to France versus Morocco tomorrow night. So join me with that. Enjoy the rest then of your, what are we on now? Wednesday. This week is just it's just a blur for me. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. We'll see you soon. Take care.